ExamPrep.School. Indiana Bail Recovery Insurance Agent Exam. There are 5 practice exams in this series. This video covers Practice Exam 1. The first 20 questions are free. In this video, we will be covering the following major categories for Practice Exam 1. Bail Agent and Recovery Agent Licensing and Regulations. Bail Agent, Recovery Agent Practices and Procedures. Bail Bond Basics. Department of Insurance. Key Definitions. Law Enforcement Principles. Let's walk through the format. I'll read each question and its choices. Let's get started. Question 1. Under Indiana Code Section 27-1-5-2, how often must the Commissioner examine the financial condition of a domestic insurer in the absence of a waiver? A. Every 3 years. B. Every 5 years. C. Every 7 years. D. Every 10 years. A countdown circle appears in the top right. Once it completes, the answer is revealed. You can pause at any time if you'd like longer to think. If you'd like additional practice covering more topics, see the description for our book. The correct answer is B. The Commissioner is required by Indiana Code Section 27-1-5-2 to examine the financial condition of each domestic insurer at least once every 5 years unless a waiver has been granted. Reason A is not correct. A 3-year interval is shorter than the statutory requirement, making it incorrect. Reason C is not correct. A 7-year interval exceeds the frequency mandated by statute. Reason D is not correct. A 10-year interval far exceeds the permissible examination frequency. Question 2. Under Indiana insurance regulation, which of the following best defines an admitted insurer? A. An insurer not licensed in Indiana but allowed to provide coverage under surplus lines when admitted insurers decline certain risks. B. An insurer holding a limited certificate to issue specified coverages, such as group health, without full rate filings to the department. C. An insurer authorized to transact insurance in Indiana, holding a certificate of authority with policy forms and rates approved by the department. D. An insurer established under captive insurance laws to insure only its parent or affiliates, exempt from admitted insurer rate filings. The correct answer is C. This option is correct because Indiana law requires admitted insurers to hold a valid certificate of authority, submit policy forms and rates for approval, and adhere to full regulatory oversight. Reason A is not correct. This describes a surplus lines insurer which is not licensed as an admitted insurer in Indiana. Reason B is not correct. Limited certificates for specific coverages do not confer full admitted insurer status, which requires broader rate and form approval. Reason D is not correct. Captive insurers serve only affiliated entities and are not admitted insurers subject to standard filing requirements. Question 3. Under Indiana's Department of Insurance Licensing Enforcement, what is a primary duty of a department investigator? A. Gathering evidence and interviewing witnesses in complaints against licensees. B. Administering pre-licensing education courses for applicants. C. Setting premium rates and bonding requirements for bail agents. D. Issuing licenses and collecting application fees. The correct answer is A. The primary duty of department investigators is to collect evidence, interview witnesses, and document findings in enforcement matters, which supports legal action against licensees who violate regulations. Reason B is not correct. Educational functions are handled by licensing or training divisions, not by enforcement investigators. Reason C is not correct. Rate and bond settings are regulatory or actuarial responsibilities, not investigative tasks. Reason D is not correct. Licensing issuance and fee collection are administrative duties, distinct from enforcement investigations. Question 4. Which of the following is a mandatory prerequisite for an applicant seeking an Indiana bail agent license? A. Complete a state-approved 20-hour pre-licensing education course in bail bond underwriting. B. Possess at least a high school diploma or equivalent plus 2 years of insurance experience. C. Maintain uninterrupted residency in Indiana for a minimum of 5 consecutive years. D. Submit documentation of no more than one traffic violation conviction in the past 3 years. The correct answer is A. This option is correct because Indiana law requires completion of a state-approved 20-hour pre-licensing course before sitting for the bail agent examination. Reason B is not correct. Insurance experience is not substituted for the pre-licensing education requirement. Reason C is not correct. Residency requirement is shorter and not a 5-year period. Reason D is not correct. Traffic violations are not part of the licensing prerequisites. Question 5. What is a required qualification for an individual applying for an Indiana recovery agent license? A. Complete 30 hours of continuing education before initial licensure. B. Be at least 25 years old and furnish proof of recovery-related court experience. C. Submit quarterly performance reports from prior bail enforcement activities. D. Hold an active Indiana bail agent license and complete a 10-hour recovery agent training course. The correct answer is D. This option is correct because Indiana statute mandates that recovery agent applicants hold an active bail agent license and complete a state-approved 10-hour recovery course. Reason A is not correct. Continuing education hours apply after licensure, not as an initial requirement. Reason B is not correct. Age and prior court experience are not the statutory prerequisites for a recovery license. Reason C is not correct. Performance reports are not required for initial recovery agent licensure. Question 6. Alicia, seeking an Indiana bail agent license, completed 8 hours of general surety training and 4 hours of Indiana-specific bail law instruction from an approved provider. During review, the Department of Insurance determined that the general training did not satisfy any education credit, and Alicia must complete 12 hours of state-specific instruction. Which best justifies the scope of the pre-licensing education requirement for bail agents? A. To ensure comprehensive knowledge of all types of surety products under federal and state law. B. To confirm that applicants understand the specific regulatory, ethical, and procedural requirements unique to Indiana bail agents. C. To align insurance pre-licensing courses with continuing education requirements for license renewal. D. To allow applicants to demonstrate proficiency in non-resident surety practices for multi-state operations. The correct answer is B. The state's pre-licensing education requirement is designed to focus on Indiana's specific bail regulations, ethics, and procedural standards so that new bail agents are fully competent under state law. Reason A is not correct. General federal surety product knowledge falls outside the state-specific focus required for bail agent licensure in Indiana. Reason C is not correct. Pre-licensing education is intended to establish initial competency, not to satisfy continuing education requirements. Reason D is not correct. The requirement is limited to Indiana practices and does not cover non-resident or multi-state surety operations. Question 7. Under Indiana law, which of the following is a mandatory condition that an applicant must satisfy before a bail recovery agent license can be issued? A. Completion of at least 12 hours of continuing education as prescribed by rule. B. Demonstrating a minimum net worth of $50,000 to the Department of Insurance. C. Filing a surety bond in an amount determined by each county circuit court prior to licensure. D. Achieving a passing score on a written examination approved by the Indiana Department of Insurance. The correct answer is D. Passing the state-approved written examination is a statutory prerequisite for licensure as a bail recovery agent in Indiana. Reason A is not correct. Continuing education is required only after initial licensure, not before issuance. Reason B is not correct. There is no net worth threshold for initial licensure of a bail recovery agent in Indiana. Reason C is not correct. Filing a surety bond is required for each bond transaction, not as a prerequisite for licensure. Question 8. Which fee category must accompany the initial Indiana bail agent license application? A. Provision of a disciplinary action processing fee alongside the initial application. B. Payment of the biennial license renewal fee due during initial application. C. Submission of a reinstatement fee for lapsed or terminated appointment status. D. Payment of a court appointment fee for each county in which the agent will be appointed. The correct answer is D. A court appointment fee for each county is required at the time of initial licensure, as it covers the agent's authorization in each jurisdiction. Reason A is not correct. Disciplinary action fees relate to enforcement proceedings, not to the initial licensing process. Reason B is not correct. Biennial renewal fees apply at renewal intervals, not with the initial application. Reason C is not correct. Reinstatement fees are assessed when renewing a lapsed license, not at initial issuance. Question 9. According to Indiana statutes, a bail recovery agent license becomes effective on which of the following dates? A. The date on which the Department of Insurance mails the license certificate to the agent. B. The date the department receives and approves the applicant's criminal history background report. C. The effective date printed on the license certificate issued by the Department of Insurance. D. The date on which all initial licensing fees have been paid in full by the applicant. The correct answer is C. Indiana law specifies that the license is effective on the date shown on the license certificate issued by the Department of Insurance. Reason A is not correct. Mailing date does not determine license activation. The printed effective date does. Reason B is not correct. Background check approval is a prerequisite, not the date that sets the license's effectiveness. Reason D is not correct. Payment of fees is required but does not itself establish the license's effective date. Question 10. Under Indiana law, a bail agent licensee must register the license with which official to be authorized to write bail bonds in each county of operation? A. Clerk of the Superior Court in each county of intended operation. B. Clerk of the Circuit Court in each county of intended operation. C. Clerk of the County Court in each county of intended operation. D. Clerk of the Criminal Appeals Court. The correct answer is B. The clerk of the circuit court is statutorily designated to receive and maintain bail agent license registrations for each county where the agent writes bonds. Reason A is not correct. The clerk of the superior court does not handle bail agent license registrations under Indiana statute. Reason C is not correct. County courts are not the entities specified for bail agent license registration in Indiana. Reason D is not correct. The clerk of the criminal appeals court has no role in bail agent license registrations. Question 11. Under Indiana law, when must a bail agent register a license with the circuit court clerk in a county where the agent plans to act? A. Within 30 days after submitting the first bail bond in that county. B. Prior to executing any bail bond in that county. C. Within 60 days after initial licensure, regardless of bond execution. D. Only at the time of license renewal. The correct answer is B. Statute mandates that a bail agent complete registration with the circuit court clerk before writing any bail bonds in that county to ensure proper court oversight. Reason A is not correct. The timing is tied to bond writing authority, not the date of first submission. Reason C is not correct. No statute allows a 60-day grace period after licensure without bond activity for registration. Reason D is not correct. Registration is required before bond execution, not just at renewal. Question 12. A bail agent for ACME Insurance executed a bail bond in Marion County after receiving only ACME's power of attorney, but without any formal appointment filed with the Indiana Department of Insurance. When the defendant failed to appear, the bond was forfeited. Under Indiana law, which of the following is true regarding the appointment relationship between the bail agent and insurer? A. The insurer remains liable on the bond despite lacking a formal written appointment. B. By executing the bond, the agent's appointment is automatically inferred by law. C. The power of attorney alone constitutes a sufficient appointment for bond execution. D. The agent had no binding authority because the insurer's written appointment was not filed with the department. The correct answer is D. This option is correct because Indiana requires a written appointment between insurer and bail agent to be filed with the Department of Insurance for authority to bind the insurer. Without that filing, the agent lacks binding authority. Reason A is not correct. An insurer is not bound by bonds executed without a proper written appointment filed as required. Reason B is not correct. Execution of a bond does not automatically create a valid appointment under Indiana law. Reason C is not correct. A power of attorney does not replace the requirement for a formal written appointment filed with the department. Question 13. Under Indiana law, on which date does a bail agent's active license expire? A. June 30th of even-numbered years. B. December 31st of odd-numbered years. C. June 30th of odd-numbered years. D. March 31st of odd-numbered years. The correct answer is C. This option is correct because Indiana bail agent licenses expire biennially on June 30th of odd-numbered years, consistent with the state's renewal cycle. Reason A is not correct. Even-numbered year expirations do not align with the statutorily defined renewal cycle. Reason B is not correct. December 31st is used for other license types, but not for bail agents under Indiana law. Reason D is not correct. March 31st is not specified in Indiana statutes for bail agent license expiration. Question 14. How many hours of continuing education are required for renewal of an Indiana bail agent license, and how many of those hours must be devoted to legal and ethical instruction? A. 10 hours total, with no specified legal and ethical instruction requirement. B. 8 hours total, including at least 2 hours of legal and ethical instruction. C. 12 hours total, including at least 2 hours of legal and ethical instruction. D. 12 hours total, with at least 4 hours in bail bond procedures. The correct answer is C. This option is correct because Indiana requires 12 hours of continuing education every renewal period, of which a minimum of 2 hours must cover legal and ethical topics. Reason A is not correct. A total of 10 hours without specifying legal ethics does not meet the statutory requirement. Reason B is not correct. An 8-hour total falls short of the mandated 12-hour requirement. Reason D is not correct. Although 12 hours is correct, the number of bail bond procedures hours is overstated compared to the ethics requirement. Question 15. In the criminal court process, what is the primary purpose of an arraignment? A. A formal court appearance where the defendant is informed of charges, enters a plea, and hears constitutional rights. B. A trial setting in which evidence is presented to a jury to determine guilt. C. A pretrial conference between defense and prosecution to negotiate plea terms. D. An initial police interview where bail terms are discussed before court filing. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is the formal court proceeding in which the defendant is advised of the charges, enters a plea, and is informed of rights. Reason B is not correct. That describes the fact-finding trial phase, not the arraignment hearing. Reason C is not correct. That refers to plea negotiations, whereas arraignment is a public court hearing. Reason D is not correct. That scenario describes a police or booking interview, rather than the arraignment in court. Question 16. Which best describes the process of filing an appeal in a criminal case? A. Submitting a request to a higher court to review and potentially reverse a conviction or sentence. B. Negotiating with the prosecution to alter charges before trial begins. C. Filing the initial criminal complaint to initiate charges against a defendant. D. Requesting a post-conviction adjustment to bail conditions. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is the procedure where a higher court is asked to examine the legality of a conviction or sentence. Reason B is not correct. That refers to plea bargaining or charge negotiations prior to trial, not an appellate review. Reason C is not correct. That describes the initiation of charges, whereas an appeal occurs after judgment. Reason D is not correct. That concerns bail modification, not appellate review of a conviction or sentence. Question 17. In a criminal case outcome, what does it mean when a defendant is acquitted? A. The defendant is found not guilty and discharged of the charges. B. The trial is delayed to allow for additional evidence gathering. C. The court grants bail pending further proceedings. D. A judge remands the case for a submission of new evidence. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is that the defendant is determined not guilty, resulting in dismissal of charges. Reason B is not correct. That describes a continuance or delay, not an acquittal verdict. Reason C is not correct. That refers to bail decisions, whereas acquittal is a verdict of not guilty. Reason D is not correct. That describes a remand for evidence, not a determination of innocence. Question 18. Under Indiana law, which best defines a bail agent? A. An individual who provides collateral security for another's release while awaiting trial. B. A law enforcement officer empowered to apprehend escapees and deliver them to authorities. C. A person licensed by the Department of Insurance to execute bail bonds as a representative of an admitted insurer. D. A judge-appointed official responsible for determining and setting bail amounts in criminal cases. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is a licensed individual authorized by the Department of Insurance to issue bail bonds on behalf of an admitted insurer, as defined under Indiana's insurance code. Reason A is not correct. Refers to a collateral provider, not a licensed agent executing bonds for an insurer. Reason B is not correct. Describes law enforcement duties rather than the issuance of bonds under insurance regulation. Reason D is not correct. Refers to a judicial officer setting bail, not an insurance-licensed bail agent. Question 19. Under Indiana bail regulations, which best describes a recovery agent? A. A court officer charged with initiating bond forfeiture actions against sureties. B. An individual who posts bail on behalf of a defendant in a criminal proceeding. C. A person licensed by the Department of Insurance to recover and surrender bail releases who fail to appear in court. D. A licensed insurer that underwrites and guarantees bail bond obligations. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is a person licensed by the Department of Insurance whose duty is to locate and return releases who fail to appear, as defined in Indiana's bail statutes. Reason A is not correct. Refers to a court officer handling forfeiture, not a licensed recovery agent. Reason B is not correct. Describes someone posting bail, not the licensed role of recovering releases. Reason D is not correct. Describes an underwriting insurer, not the agent responsible for recovery duties. Question 20. Which best defines the term defendant in the context of an Indiana bail bond? A. A licensed professional who locates and apprehends bond fugitives to prevent abscondment. B. The individual responsible for executing and underwriting bail bonds for a charged party. C. The person accused of a crime whose court appearances are secured by a bail bond issued on their behalf. D. The insurer that guarantees financial performance under a bail bond contract for a defendant. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is the individual charged with a criminal offense, whose release and court appearance are guaranteed by the issuance of a bail bond. Reason A is not correct. refers to recovery agent functions, not the accused individual. Reason B is not correct. Describes the bail agent's role, not the person charged with an offense. Reason D is not correct. Describes the insurer's underwriting role, not the person on trial. Enjoyed this practice test? Tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with a classmate. Got a question we should tweak? Comment below, we read them all. Find full practice exam books in the description or at ExamPrep.School.